Hi guys, welcome to the Macros Bodybuilding and Powerlifting podcast. We're getting towards episode 10. We're almost in double figures, which is pretty exciting. I'm glad it's kept consistent. I hope you guys are enjoying these. So today I wanted Mark to kind of host it because we try and make this more of a discussion, but it ends up kind of one person trying to guide things. And so I've done the last few reigns today. So go for it, Mark.
Yeah, cheers, Steve. So yeah, just like Steve says, every week we try and come on and discuss something of value to people for you guys to listen to. And it's usually kind of based around a topic that's doing the rounds on either Facebook or any kind of social media at the time. So what I thought we could talk about today was supplementation. And just because I get this kind of questions a lot, and I'm pretty sure Steve will get these types of questions a lot as well. Just general people looking to, one, find out a little bit more about what supplements to take, what supplements maybe to not bother with, and the kind of common ones that we would typically recommend our clients to at least find out a little bit more for themselves, if that was something that they wanted to consider. The first one that I'd like to talk about, and Steve, I'll ask you about this, is just because I know that it was a question that we received in the group just recently. And it was a question whether or not BCAAs were worth considering as part of a kind of overall diet. And I think the post was kind of specifically geared towards a gaining phase. So should you be taking BCAAs as an extra supplement while gaining muscle? What would your thoughts be, and how would you deal with that if a client asks you that question?
So I think it's important, like you said, that the client or the person you're talking to understands what a supplement is initially, so they realize that their final importance in terms of calories, macros, nutrient timing, food composition, they have to realize that whatever the supplement they're even looking towards is going to be that cherry on top of an amazing cake. And then also look into it themselves, and actually examine.com is a great place for themselves to actually educate themselves on. But that would be less for a client because obviously we're trying to shortcut things. So in terms of BCAAs, and from the literature I've read, from the experts I've followed, it becomes kind of something you do not need if you hit your other priorities in the building block. If you've got essentially your total protein levels hit, you're getting BCAAs. BCAAs are the building blocks to protein. And so if you're eating enough total protein, then the benefit of additional BCAAs aren't really warranted. I know when you're cutting, there's people who suggest that they could become beneficial. Like I'm sure Lane Norton, he's a big fan of BCAAs. Brad Schoenfeld, not so much. Alan Aragon, not so much. And I kind of go along the side of still, I'm not that big a fan. I'd prefer to see people getting it through whole foods that are going to fill them up more. You save very negligible calories through not having the carbohydrates and things. But yeah, at the end of the day, especially when you're in a gaining phase, when protein's not even as high in importance, and you're not likely to lose any muscle mass from even not having sufficient. If protein levels are hit, then BCAAs basically mean jack. I won't say the last word.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, I think it's just one of that things, when everyone starts to go into the gym for the first time, or even people who have come back from a longer layoff and they're trying to pick it up again, and they're sorting out their calories, they're sorting out their macros. One of the things that they first see is protein is important in a diet when building muscle. So now we need all the protein, and I'm even going to supplement with some extra protein, BCAAs. And yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on about a diet being sufficiently high in protein. And even when we say sufficiently high in protein, what we're saying is like sufficiently high for that individual for that current goal or training block or period of time. Yeah, they're going to be getting all their protein requirements. yeah, supplement with BCAAs. And it's also important to know that, they are just 3 of the 9 essential amino acids, and along with the kind of pricey cost, yeah, not probably something that I would recommend. And yeah, I'd go along with what you said on that as well.
I think I was just going to say, I've actually had BCAAs because I was completely clueless. And I think a lot of people don't even realize they're protein. They just think they're something aside from protein. They don't realize they're building blocks towards protein. Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't cover the whole range of aminos. And I could see there being a time where BCAAs become more beneficial for maybe someone like a vegetarian who doesn't necessarily get a whole range of protein sources, whereas like obviously meats have like the full range of like it's high quality protein source. Whereas a vegetarian, if they don't eat a lot of dairy and eggs, or even maybe a vegan who doesn't have it at all, they might not get high quality, and so it might be beneficial there, but still like you're pulling at strings. And in reality, the only way I could find it being beneficial was I used to like drinking Extend during my workouts because it was sweet and tasted amazing, and then I just substituted it for squash in that case anyway.
Well, that's actually a good point. I mean, I guess if people just really if people can afford to have it and they just really like the taste of it, and it makes them somehow have a better time in the gym, or yeah, I think you're not going to have any detriment to taking it. So yeah, but one of the favorites, and that's a question that I get asked quite a lot. It's always the BCAAs. I've never actually had them myself. It's one thing. I've done every supplement in the world at one point, for sure. But for some reason, I don't know why, I've never supplemented with BCAAs. Even when not so long ago there was just a boom in the gym, and everyone was like popping tablets halfway through their workout, or every set they've done, slamming a BCAA tablet, just to prevent any. You don't want to go catabolic, I suppose. So yeah, on the topic of supplements. So if you were to start a client from scratch, whether it was a total beginner client or a slightly advanced client just looking to get the most out of their training, what kind of supplements would you suggest they at least look into, to maybe as a coverall basis, or just to try and get some benefits out of them?
So I think I kind of separate them into, although they cross paths, like health and then performance, like ergogenics, sports supplements. So if I cover health, which I think are actually probably more important and will effectively help performance in the end, I do like to see if someone is in a calorie deficit and they're probably not getting sufficient micronutrition, or maybe they're missing out on areas, I do like to suggest maybe having a multivitamin. I think that's beneficial, and I never suggest like a ludicrous expensive one. All of these supplements actually you'll find are cheap, which is great. And they're always recommendations. Like diet always comes first, like we said. Get your priorities right, and supplementations. I do personally supplement with omega-3s, and I recommend other people do as well, just because they are so essential and so great for brain function, amongst other things, reducing inflammation, and they've even been found to help with fat loss somehow. Obviously, the calorie deficit, the main thing to dictate that, but omega-3 is definitely a big one to take if you don't eat sufficient fatty fish. I think it's kind of 2 decent sized portions of fish a week should cover bases. But if you're getting that, then 3 to 6 kind of average sized omega-3 tablets kind of covers you if you don't have the omega-3s from your diet. So a multivitamin, omega-3s, and then vitamin D3. Another good one if you don't get a lot of sunlight, or if it's winter. And some people get really badly affected when they don't get enough sun. I've had clients that actually before they even came to me, they're like, I go on sunbeds during winter because I get depressed if I don't get enough sunlight. And so many people work indoors nowadays. So I personally supplement with vitamin D3 as well. So just get these from Kund. take 2 of them maize, and that covers my bases. I think it's about 4,000 IU. I know there's a lot of that there's quite a big range in terms of vitamin D3 to how much you can take. But I generally go to examine.com for that sort of thing. So I think for health, that really covers your bases for most part. I know some people look into taking like iron vitamins, maybe females could look into that one. Calcium could be something you want to look into if you don't have enough dairy, but those would be more kind of on an individual basis in terms of that context of that client. But most clients could do the omega-3, multivitamin, vitamin D. And then for performance, obviously coffee, well, caffeine can be a big help for many, many reasons. Satiety, for energy during the day and concentration, just maybe at work. And then obviously performance, it can kind of reduce perceived exertion levels, can improve kind of your ability to endure exercise and get more out of your workout. I know for sure I'm feeling tired and down, it can definitely give my workouts a boost. It also increases your like your thermogenesis increases slightly. So your metabolic rate, increases like by a very small amount from having it. So a lot of fat loss supplements contain these tons of caffeine and like boost your metabolic rate by a small amount, but like it makes you very dependent on it. You feel like awful. And then the only other one really is creatine monohydrate. 5 grams of creatine year round, every day. Creatine monohydrate or Crea Pure even would be a higher quality source. It does so many other health benefits as well. Like this is why the 2 cross paths, but boosting your ability to perform high kind of intensity exercise. So sprinters would benefit, powerlifters benefit, bodybuilders benefit, most strength athletes benefit from creatine. And then potentially you could look into maybe citrulline malate that has shown to improve like pumps and endurance during workouts, pre-workouts, kind of an acute response. And then beta-alanine, another one, if you're doing kind of more endurance repetitions, metabolite training, lots of pump work, that could be introduced. But it's the benefits from even those 2 are going to be very small. So really, when it comes to sports performance, I think I just strongly hold to creatine and caffeine and not much else. How about yourself, Mark?
Yeah, I actually just the same. I agree completely with that. I think what you were saying about the beta-alanine and citrulline malate is just to recognise that these types of supplements might be slightly beneficial to people who are just trying to get that absolute maximum out of their training. And for, again, when we talk about just general population, people just wanting to lose a little bit of fat, gain a little bit of muscle, it's not necessarily something that you have to go straight off the bat spend money on, because as you rightly said, you can become dependent on these things. And I've had clients who have literally had a worse workout or a bad workout because they haven't been able to get their pre-workout, whatever it was. And just talking about pre-workouts and caffeine, would you ever suggest clients maybe have spells away from taking pre-workouts, away from taking caffeine as a pre-workout supplement? Would you cycle it, or how would you advise clients looking at their kind of overall and their long-term performance benefits?
So I think with caffeine, you're completely right. People become dependent on it and they literally are like, if I don't get my pre-workout in, I'm going to have an awful workout. Well, a lot of people don't even realize they take their pre-workouts completely wrong. The fact that caffeine actually takes a while to kick in, it doesn't just kick in straight away. I believe it's like half an hour. So people take their pre-workout literally like, and then they hit the gym. And it's like, well, that doesn't kick in like maybe till halfway through your workout, nearly at the end.
So glad you brought
when you already knackered it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time they just see a benefit because of the flavor, like taking BCAAs during the workout. They kind of just get that tastes nice. They kind of get a boost from that. I know personally that did me through prep, kind of just having maybe like, I had a Monster sometimes during my workouts just because it was like sweet. And I was like, oh, that's giving me like fake energy. So yeah, in terms of caffeine, maybe like caffeine periodization, you could call it. I think for serious clients, it's definitely something they should consider, because caffeine's so powerful, but you do become like desensitized to it essentially from more use, or at least in my experience and from what I've seen, that seems to be what happens with most people. And different people can tolerate different amounts. So I do like people to maybe not take pre-workouts, or at least definitely not rely on them during phases where maybe they're gaining weight, because you're eating plenty of food, you shouldn't be low on energy. In periods where maybe it's like the first week of your new training block, there should be no or deloads. People taking pre-workouts during deloads does my head in. I'm just like, you do not need more energy during your deload. Like, you're going in there and doing nothing anyway, really. So in general, I like people to kind of dial it down maybe to a coffee a day, and then during their kind of overreaching weeks, maybe then add in a pre-workout. And then during their gaining phases, don't rely on it so much. And during cutting phases, and as you get in deeper, you can increase the amount of caffeine you're taking, and you'll get more and more benefit from it, because obviously it has all those the extra thermic effects as well, and it gives you kind of the fake energy, which can really benefit you. But again, that's for people who take it really seriously. I mean, for myself, I can't live without a coffee a day, and I love coffee so much. And decaf, whoever says decaf tastes the same, it does not at all. I can't cut it out, but I know some people, like, they're cut out, they go on to caffeine-free beverages. They won't have, like, chocolate even contains a fair amount of caffeine in. And you can go really extreme if you want to, but I couldn't deal with that.
Yeah, it's kind of, even as knowledgeable as you are in terms of being able to advise that, and that you might get more out of your caffeine if it was kind of periodized in some way, people have got to remember as well is, what do we get most enjoyment out of? And the trade-off is that, we might be able to have that greater effect from caffeine every 6 weeks, but I want to drink it every day. And I'll happily not have that little extra kick that it will give me every 6 weeks if I was periodizing it. So yeah, you've got to, if you enjoy it, then of course. And like you said, I actually don't drink coffee. I think I seem to be the only, and I know you remind me of this all the time, but I am the only, or seem to be the only, fitness professional in the world that doesn't drink coffee, which is kind of strange. I'm more of a tea man. Is that weird?
I think I used to hate coffee, or I just want to take the piss out of you right now. My head is, I'm not so much like that. I am very much like, I take everything seriously. So I'm like, no, of course, having coffee is not a problem. So why would you ever think that? Tea is absolutely fine. I mean,
oh no.
Hay fever's coming.
Yeah, I'm going to apologize for that. I do. I have had a bad week on hay fever. I don't know whether coffee could sort that out. Maybe I have to give it a try. So yeah, and obviously, so go back to how we advise clients, particularly new people starting up. What about populations? I know you mentioned people who might need like more calcium, iron in the body. Would there ever be a time that you said to clients that they might find that talking to a doctor or a proper registered dietitian at some point, rather than taking advice from even not just ourselves as coaches, but like mainstream media and social media or newspapers, or any clients that you would recommend maybe have to push towards registered qualified dietitians or doctors for their own circumstance with supplements?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, actually, because I have people come to me and they maybe are already taking medication, well, which in a sense, I guess, is kind of like a supplement from their doctors. So I've had people come to me, maybe they're on diuretics because they're holding on to water, or they're on kind of maybe even birth control or any sort of supplement or medication like this, and they kind of say, I'd really not like, I'd prefer not to have to take this. Can you advise me what to do? And I'm just like, no, it's out of my scope of practice. Like, you can tell them what you're doing diet wise and exercise wise, what we're doing, and whether that means you can come off it. But I can't advise you to not take it. Like maybe a testosterone replacement therapy. Like I wouldn't tell someone, okay, yeah, now you've got your exercise and training in order, your diet in order, like you don't need to take that anymore. It's out of our scope of practice. And I think that's really important. With the whole supplementation side, we can I think recommending is okay, but we can't be like, yeah, you have to take this, especially with those like tiny details of supplements. So an example of where maybe a calcium supplement becomes important is especially maybe a female who is dieting, who doesn't really, or maybe is lactose intolerant potentially. That would then be a case where they're like, okay, calcium would be a good idea for you to take. And in situations like that, most of the time diet does cover your back, especially like if they're maintaining or gaining weight, then you can pretty much rely on the fact that you're advising them to eat 80% wholesome, minimally processed diet, plenty of fruit and veg. But something like dairy could go amiss if they're dieting and things like that. It really becomes like, yeah, again, a case-by-case situation. And actually, I've got a question for you, Mark, in terms of, I don't know if you keep an eye on the supplementation research much, or just have seen any supplementation research or interesting things that have come out recently. I know I saw, it wasn't that recent, but I don't know if you've seen anything by, I think it's Jacob Wilson on HMB being better than steroids, apparently. I don't know if you saw that study, or have you heard anything about betanine? I think it's betanine.
I did just recently. I think Greg Nuckols shared the article. Could be wrong. I know what you're talking about. I know the study you're talking about. I haven't looked into it much, to be honest myself. But yeah, that's what did you think of it when you? I'm sure was it Greg Nuckols who shared that study?
So yeah, it was Greg Nuckols who, I think he shared it. Basically, I the long and short of what I've gathered from it, and it's been presented in other conferences I've been to, is the study showed that people taking HMB actually ended up seeing better like muscle growth results than people taking steroids, which is ludicrous because it just makes no sense at all. And this is an example I kind of wanted to bring up so that when people hear this, they're like, okay, if something ludicrous comes out in the news or they see a study and it just sounds completely like, how could that even happen? Like someone's gained a kilo of muscle in a calorie deficit, or taken a supplement and they gained a kilo of muscle in a week, something like that, something ludicrous where like, okay, HMB is steroids. They really need to question it, and whether it's like look into how the methods were done, things like that, or even just reach out to someone who they respect and ask them, like, is this right? Does this seem right to you? Because they obviously be able to look into the research maybe in a better way that they can.
Absolutely, I think that's super important with any research actually. Rather than, because what you typically get is a research paper comes out, or somebody shared a research paper, and the conclusion might be something like 10 active females lost X amount of weight during the week on 2,000 calories or whatever it may be. And that's probably a bad example, but what I'm trying to get at is the conclusions from the studies looks fantastic and it catches everybody's eye. But when you delve into it and you start to read the paper, things like protein's not matched, energy expenditure is not matched in some of these studies, and you've got to really be careful not just to take a conclusion or abstract away. Because that's where, and I think it's unintentional. I don't think people intend to necessarily spread bad information, but that is certainly a way that it does happen, in terms of people just taking the wrong conclusion because they haven't taken the time to read or understand the context of that study, and it can be very, very, very easily misinterpreted. You've got to know all the variables, especially in weight loss diets or weight loss studies. You know, were these subjects on equal amount of calories? Was protein matched? Was energy expenditure the same? And it goes on. So yeah, great point. Sorry,
and that's why. That's right. And that's actually why we can't actually recommend many supplements, because if there isn't like a large body of evidence all pointing in one direction to say, yay, it does provide a benefit, then we can't really say. I mean, there could be several studies kind of for and against. They could balance out and equal out. Yeah. And something like creatine monohydrate is one of the most researched sport performance supplements out there, and it shows benefit. Like goes for caffeine, omega-3s on balance are positive. Yeah. But there's a lot of supplements out there that get researched, and they basically, there's either like one study saying, yeah, they're amazing, and that will get put out into the press and everyone will go bonkers over it. And what they realize is that the full body of evidence isn't in support. Yeah. I'm even actually writing an article at the moment, and I'm telling people like creatine monohydrate, take 5 grams daily, doesn't matter what time you take it. Apart from, there is one study that does say if you take it post-workout, you see slightly better results. And I'm saying this is one study. If it's convenient to take it post-workout, you could try it, but I'm not going to say it's going to make life-changing results because it's one study.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, it would be so easy for that one study to hit the mainstream, and then everyone's taking creatine post-workout. And sometimes, at their inconvenience, it might be inconvenient for people to take creatine post-workout, yet they'll still try and do it. And just talking about creatine, so because that's one supplement that we've mentioned quite a lot, and would you ever recommend clients go through a loading phase of creatine, or would you ever say to take the foot off the gas and go through periods of not taking it? Or would you say that just taking it consistently, you know, 3 to 5 grams a day, is probably the most beneficial for most people?
So I think loading, I think a lot of people I think there's a camp that think loading is absolutely necessary and they're going to see better results via loading. I think there's then a camp that is like loading is completely a waste of time and it's useless. But like most things, there's a shade of gray in the middle. And loading in a very small number of cases, I've got to admit, could be beneficial. With creatine, I know you know, Mark, is the point is you're just trying to top up your natural stores, because it is like an energy store that allows for ATP. And once you've done that, you're great. You just want to sustain that. So the benefit of loading, it can get you to that point of saturation quicker. And then you'd switch to just taking the 3 to 5 grams a day, kind of just going along, or you could just start taking 3 to 5 grams a day. For most people, I recommend just the 5 grams a day, because generally when you load, you see quicker water retention coming on, because with creatine comes water. And for people some people don't respond well to it in terms of like, it causes them gastric upset and they just feel uncomfortable, and it can lead into those problems. You also waste maybe more money because you're loading on it, which is just makes you get through the creatine much quicker, which I don't know if it balances itself out in the long run. And then in terms of taking time away from it, it's not anything I've seen. I think I've seen one person recommend this, and I think it's who I really, really respect, but I've not seen any like solid evidence for reasoning behind that. And I think it's more he's looked at things and how it interacts with things, and the fact that you could kind of use it to maybe, I guess in a sense, it might be like when we're doing pump training, we fill our muscles with water, and that then causes the muscle cell to expand to a point where it thinks it's going to break, and so it reinforces itself and grows stronger. So that's kind of the mechanism between the pump and hypertrophy. So I think I've heard about when you take creatine away, and then reintroduce it, the muscle cell then fills with this water again, and it could have this effect of muscle hypertrophy. For the majority of the people, I just say take 3 to 5 grams year round, and that's what I do as well, because that's what the majority of the experts, and from what I've seen in the literature, suggests is the main thing to do. How about yourself, Mark?
Yeah, I agree. Completely. I think I know who you're talking about, actually, and I tend to just like with any supplement, I tend to first of all look at the kind of body of literature or evidence myself. By that time I've already got an idea of how I think it should be implemented. Then I might go and ask the advice of people who are far more knowledgeable than myself, because there's plenty of them. And luckily for us, they're always open to help guys like us out. So, in regarding creatine, I think it's the same thing with most things that we should be really focused on, is that kind of chronic period of time. Once like you said, once the muscles are saturated, they're saturated, and it's just a case of keeping them topped up. So whether you load creatine or whether you start taking it 5 grams a day every day for a period of time, your muscles are going to get saturated, and hopefully they'll stay topped up with continued supplementation. So yeah, I think it's just that chronic period of time. And yeah, I know you've mentioned examine.com already. And I think if anyone's watching this and would like a little bit more information on any supplements that we haven't talked about or something that they've seen, examine.com would be a great place or a great resource to start. I know the guys there keep on top of the evidence as best as they possibly can. And that's typically where I would get my own evidence from or information from. So if I've got a client who asks me about something and I'm not quite sure, that would be just my first kind of go-to place. And I think it's important to say that as well, that we're coaches, but I don't know everything about every single supplement in the world, and I don't expect anybody does. I think if we're upfront and honest about that, I think we're in a good place where we can get the information. And then it's just important to know that even the information that we are given, so even the advice that we're giving out at the moment on supplementation, is based on the knowledge that we've got like today. The thing is, it's just about being open to whether or not that evidence changes in time. It might not happen, but down the line, it might find that creatine has a detrimental effect in the body, and who would have thought it? But as long as you can go along with that evidence and kind of adapt as you go, not hold a bias to it. Yeah, just be open and know that research is changing all the time, and that's what kind of makes the whole thing so exciting in this industry, is that there is new evidence coming out all the time. Yeah, so
Mark,
yeah,
I've just got a question for you. I think it's actually a great point in terms of the fact that science is ever evolving, and there's no point kind of like, oh, creatine works, so it's always going to work. Things could change. BCAAs could be found to be really, really beneficial or something. But the question I wanted to ask you, Mark, was something I find interesting is that the fact there's people who can be non-responders to creatine. And I personally, if I really honestly, truthfully thought about it, I have no idea if I respond to creatine. I have no idea whether it's giving me benefit. It's such a small amount, and I've never really gone away from taking it. And there's so many other variables involved with training performance. I don't know if I'm benefiting from it. Have you ever actually seen a performance increment, or how do you deal with that?
It's a great point. It's a very great point. It's an interesting point, because I just recently, this came to my attention just recently, actually. I noticed a discussion about this on social media. I don't know if you've noticed, or if it's a coincidence, but yeah, I had never really even thought about it. again, I take creatine just because the research says that it's been shown to be beneficial for the likes of powerlifters, bodybuilders, people to get in that like power output, and that's the reason I take it. Now, whether or not I have actually seen noticeable strength gains or performance gains while taking creatine, I don't know. I guess it's really hard to measure. I mean, I am supplementing with creatine at the moment, as I always have. In the gym, my performance is the best it's ever been. But, you know, is that just a byproduct of getting stronger and eating more food with a little bit more of a smarter training program, or is it the fact that the creatine is in my system? I don't know. That's a really good question. Interesting. And I guess there's no real measure or way of measuring, because I think it's important, yeah, just to remember it is such a small advantage. All these things are just, as you said, the kind of icing on the cake. If you're strong, you might get a little bit stronger with creatine. It's not like you're going to go from deadlifting 50 kilos to deadlifting 150 kilos. These are just very small overall kind of performance or health benefits. So to measure it, we can't really measure it. All we can do is advise that it has been shown in controlled studies to have improvements. So if you are a bodybuilder or powerlifter or anyone who takes like resistance training seriously, go and buy that study, go and buy that evidence, then it's worth considering anyway. I guess, I don't know. Yeah, that would be how I would answer that, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point in that you brought it back to the fact that they're the cherry on the top. And so, yeah, you might get a little bit stronger maybe from taking creatine according to the body of evidence. But if you're doing 30 sets, not 30, maybe 30 total reps of bench volume a week, which is nothing, and you increase to 50, you're going to get a lot stronger or a lot more muscle gains than you are from just taking creatine. So like getting your training priorities in place, getting your nutritional priorities in place, supplements always going to give you that tiny bit. And I think for me, yeah, it's almost impossible to actually measure unless I did a controlled study on myself, which would be very painful and difficult. I don't have like a lab to do it at all in. And so I think the reason I feel comfortable in recommending it is for the majority of the studies have benefit. There's also health benefits to creatine. I think it's like memory and things like that. There's benefits coming out all the time. And then the fact it's just really cheap. If it was very expensive, then the cost to benefit ratio would kind of skew quite a lot more. But the fact it's cheap just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's probably the case with most of the supplements that we've recommended today that are fairly cost effective. They're fairly cheap. They're fairly available. It's not going to kind of break the bank. It's not going to make or break your diet either. Although I would add, I think when people hear supplement, it kind of they shut off a little bit and they just see it as like a bad word almost. Like I get a lot of clients who come on board and say, I don't want to take supplements. I want to do everything kind of naturally. And yeah, I get that a lot. You know, supplementation is not a bad thing. Like you said, it has not just performance benefits; it's got health benefits as well. So if you're a person who does not like oily fish, you know, won't eat salmon, won't eat tuna, or any of these kind of things, then taking omega-3 supplementation is a good idea. Yeah, so it shouldn't be looked at as some kind of dirty word or cheating in any way. It can be very, very sensibly placed in a diet and very beneficial as well. So I think that's important to get across, is it's not, supplementing is not a bad thing necessarily. And that might sound strange to people watching this, because I guess people watching this probably are serious into training and their nutrition, and they already maybe are taking some of these supplements. But I do get that quite a lot, is people who just flat say they don't want to take supplements. Do you get that kind of, I was going to say problems, it's not a problem. Do you get that kind of client who has that kind of opinion?
I've definitely had it in the past. Not necessarily clients, which is quite lucky. I guess I don't attract that sort of person that would have that view, but I've definitely seen it where people are like, oh, I'm 100% natural, not taking creatine, not taking whey protein, not taking any of these things. And I personally don't even really count whey protein as a supplement, because although like obviously it's sold by supplement companies, it's a food. Like whey protein is from milk, and it's actually a food. Protein is a macronutrient, it is food. And a lot of these things like creatine is found within foods. It's just not a lot of it. If you don't eat a lot of red meat and you don't eat like a lot of fish that contains creatine, then you're not probably getting enough of it.
Absolutely.
Same like omega-3, it's found within food. And vitamin D actually can be found within food as well. It's natural from the sunlight. And all of these, the supplements we're getting are naturally sourced from like natural things. So yeah, like you said, they're not, it's kind of like a dirty word. Some people view it as like a dirty word. Some people view it as like a magical thing, whereas actually it's just that little bit of kind of give you that little bit that your diet's not giving you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's funny you mentioned the protein, because that seems to be one of the biggest one. I'll get a client who will say, oh, you know, I don't have to take protein shakes, do I? And I think, again, they see it as almost like, I've even had a client asking, just said, I don't want to take whey protein because I don't want to take steroids. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Oh my God.
When did protein become a steroid? So yeah, it's absolutely right about the about protein being it is a whole food. It's a natural food. That I would like to see that getting stopped. Actually, is seeing protein as some kind of chemical wizardry that people don't want to touch. It's perfectly not. It's, in fact, as an amino acid profile, I don't think it could be matched whey protein. So, I mean, you know, infant's milk is whey protein. It's just, if you're looking to introduce a higher protein diet, supplementing with whey protein would be a great idea. And it is a whole food. I totally agree with that. I hate seeing that. I don't have many bugbears, but that's one for sure. The whey protein avoidance camp. Definitely.
I mean, I think you're probably similar to me in the fact that just whey protein in general, it's really cheap, very convenient. There's so many recipes now with like protein, like protein mug cakes, like protein fluff. There's so many different things you can do with it. It's very versatile. It's almost like egg whites or eggs in general, but are very versatile, very cheap. Yeah. And it's like eggs, its amino acid profile, like you said, is fantastic. I think the only downside maybe to whey protein is the fact, it's got the fact that it could maybe not be as high quality as what the manufacturer says, and that's a difficult thing. You just have to go with a trusted manufacturer, like a trusted producer. And the fact that maybe it has sweetener in it. So if you're having a lot of sweetener from like diet drinks and like whey protein, everything, you're going way overboard. It could, like, you could argue that it's maybe not great. But yeah, in general, like whey protein is, I do have clients that are like, oh, I'm having 3 shakes a day. Is like, I think I should remove one. Maybe not. I mean, if you're feeling full and fine off that diet, then 3 shakes a day, as long as it's like not kind of taking over your diet and you're still getting your fruit and veg in, it's not a problem. I think a lot of what we've said is, it is finding those supplements that help aid your overall diet. It's never they're never the be end all. They just help with the end, like the end diet in the end.
Absolutely. You would have to be, I think what people would really want to be doing is focus on their diet as a whole first. Try and get their protein, carbohydrates, and fats from these natural whole minimally processed foods if possible. And then if they find that they're lacking or potential for being deficient in any way with any of them, then think about supplementing with some of the things that we've spoken about. But just knowing that that is all it is. It does only supplement the diet, and it won't necessarily make your diet great if you're not kind of focused on the diet as a whole.
Awesome. And actually, I think that probably brings us to quite a nice round off close. I think we've been talking for enough time now about supplements, especially considering they are such a small area of everything else, and people concentrate on like the bigger picture, the things that are more important. But like Mark just ended there, it's like supplements are supplements. They're exactly what they say on the tin. So is there anything else you want to leave with the viewers, Mark, or all good?
No, I'm good. I think we've covered supplements fairly well. I'm going to really try and go and get myself. I've really struggled today. I'm really not well. So hopefully next time we do this, I'm going to be covered. But man, my head's pumping, so I'm going to go lie down now.
Awesome. I'll let you go lie down, and we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.
Bye.